Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire supported by Glenlivet Books. Once again, today we shall focus on the COVID situation in Kerala. 2 weeks ago, I presented the view of Professor Gagandeep Kang. She believes Kerala is doing an outstanding job controlling the spread of the virus, and the state should be considered a role model for the rest of the country. Today, we present the government's view. My guest is the director of the National Center for Disease Control, Dr. Sujit Kumar Singh. Dr. Singh has recently visited Kerala at the head of a team sent by the central government to inquire and investigate into what Kerala is doing wrong. He now joins me to discuss his findings. Dr. Sujit Singh, Kerala has been growing at almost 20,000 a day for a pretty long time, and on several days, its growth has been almost 50% of the daily tally for the whole country. So in your opinion, can you start by telling me what is Kerala doing wrong?
I think you're very right when you have mentioned that it is now contributing to around 50% of the total country's daily new cases. But on other hand, we have to look at the Kerala during the past 1.5 years of pandemic. We have to see that what has been the history and what has gone into the past 1 year, that is 2020, where we have seen, because I just wanted to focus on the year which has gone and then come to the today's scenario so that it will be put in right perspective, that what is really the situation in Kerala and how it is different from the other parts of the country. So I just want to elaborate on that in the last year, when the pandemic or when the first 3 cases started, I think everybody knows they started from Kerala, and the first cases were tracked very nicely, and Kerala was the only state which started 100% facility quarantine, not only of the cases, but also of the contacts which were of the cases. So all the infected people were primarily put under quarantine in the facilities, and thus the community exposure during that part of the pandemic was very, very limited, I must say, or negligible, I can say. So the large portion of the population remained susceptible during the early phases of pandemic. This is quite unlike with the other states where we saw that the infected people were, of course, in the facilities, but they were for a pretty long time in the community as well. And looking at the disease infectiousness, the disease spreads prior to developing symptoms. So during that time, the infection does spread in the community. And that was basically the period where the community got exposure, although to a limited level in other parts. Now coming to the part which you really mentioned just is now. We are seeing a high level or a substantially high level of transmission, that is over 10% for past 45 days, in my opinion, to be more precise. I am not just saying that what is right, what is wrong, but only thing in this particular pandemic is to use the epidemiological principles, to use the epidemiological intelligence to review the principles in each and every aspect, and then devise your containment or devise your control strategies. So I think those strategies or the basics of those strategies have not been put in right perspective, and that is what, in my opinion, is driving the current transmission in Kerala.
Let's take up those strategies one by one so that the audience can understand A, what strategy we're talking about, and B, where Kerala is falling short. Now, on Tuesday at the National Press Conference, you said Kerala is doing inadequate and improper contact tracing. You said that the contact tracing ratio in Kerala is between 1:1.2 and 1:1.7. That suggests that Kerala is not even contact tracing one full person for every infected person. Is it really as low as that? Because it sounds almost unbelievable.
No, it's correct. As far as the 8 districts where we visited, it is abysmally low. The contacts which were traced per positive case have been somewhere between 1.2 to 1.7, if I put it to the maximum limit as well. So, but in all said and done, the contact tracing is really not even going to the household contacts also. So that is basically the one important aspect which is allowing the infection to be there in the community, not only in the community, but the households as well. Because the case which are there in the home isolation, and the contacts which are there in the same home, which are not having the restricted movement, then they are the continuous source of infection. And through these persons, there is always a possibility that the transmission continues.
Let me
So
pick
I
up
think,
on let
yeah.
me pick up on one point you made there. You're saying when a person becomes infected in Kerala, even people living in the same household are not properly contact traced. In other words, people in the next room are often or frequently not properly contact traced. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what we have observed, that according to the district administration and the state officials as well, the number of contacts which they have shown to us and which has been happening in the community also is fairly low. And if we go with the current containment strategy, I think we all recommend that not less than 15 contacts per positive case need to be traced, particularly when the transmission is in the early phase or the transmission is low, or if we say in the current scenario also when the transmission is around 10% test positivity. So if we are not tracing the contacts, then we are allowing the infected persons to be in the community, and that community transmission will continue.
Now, the second point you made at that national press conference on Tuesday was that home isolation is not being properly monitored. And given that up to 80% of Kerala's COVID patients are in home isolation, this is a particular matter of concern. But my question is twofold. A, what do you mean when you say home isolation is not being properly monitored? And secondly, how sure are you of this? Who told you?
You are very right that the home isolation guidelines have been issued by the central government only, but those guidelines are very, very specific, that you have to assess the space in the particular house, whether the infected person has got a room where he can be isolated not only from the family members, but now other persons should be allowed to be in contact at least 6 feet near to that person. So that is one. Second is the household contacts, and everyone has to wear proper COVID mask and observe the distancing also. So that is another part. Now looking at the situation in Kerala, where we have seen all the districts, and state by admission by state itself, the home isolation people ranges somewhere between 65 to 85% in various districts. So these persons, because the symptoms when symptoms are mild, or when they are asymptomatic and found positive, they are, as per our strategy also, they are permitted to be in home isolation. But point is that if you look at the structure of Kerala, there is hardly any rural-urban divide. And if you see the households which are distributed in Kerala, right from the linear strip of Kerala, we find that 10% positivity is distributed across the length and breadth of Kerala. So these infected persons, if we look at the 10% positivity across all 14 districts, if 14 districts having this positivity, houses are in continuation, where they are not monitored properly, then you see that the infection is spread across the length and the transmission is going on.
In other words, you have come to the conclusion that house isolation is not being properly monitored because of the fact that the spread of 10% positivity is right across all 14 districts. And since 80 to 85% of patients are home isolated, you can't have such a high spread of positivity if home isolation is properly monitored. In other words, the spread of positivity across all 14 districts leads you to the conclusion home isolation is not being properly monitored. Have I understood that correctly?
I don't think that is basically what I really meant. Home isolation monitoring is one aspect. The spread of cancer transmission across the community is another aspect. Because if we go district by district, and if we look at the wards and the mohallas which are there in the various districts, we see that the positivity is ranging from the high positivity areas to the low positivity areas. When we take average of the district, then it comes to really 11%, 12%, or maybe 17 or 20% in some of the districts. So some of the districts, what we see in the northern Kerala, the positivity was ranging even up to 21%. So that is how we are concerned. Like Palakkad, the 21% positivity is really very, very high.
Now there are reports in some newspapers referring to the report you gave to the central government, but these are leaks, and I want you to tell me whether the leaks are correct or not. And these reports and papers said that people under home isolation were actually mixing freely in their neighborhoods. In other words, home isolation is being, in some places in Kerala, completely breached and ignored. Is that correct? Are those leaks in papers correct, or are they wrong?
They are correct. And that is why, because both the things are linked. You cannot say that your home isolation is 100% monitored and 100% isolation is effective. Contact tracing, another aspect. You have to see all the things in a closed environment. You can't isolate contacts tracing, you can't isolate home isolation. You have to see both the things together, because these two things are contributing to the transmission. And the result is in front of us, that the transmission for the last 45 days is above 10%. That's a fact. And now it is rising also in 4 or 5 districts. The transmission is rising at an alarming pace. In last 14 days, if you see, the transmission has gone from 10% to 17% in Malappuram, and Wayanad, it is going to 20% from 14%. And again, Thrissur, 21% from, means 7% rise in positivity in a period of 14 days. So that is which is a really concern.
Now, a third point that you raised at Tuesday's National Press Conference was your concern about Kerala's healthcare facilities, and you said particularly in northern districts. You cited the example of Malappuram, where hospitals, you said, were almost 90% full. But I put it to you, given the enormous number of cases, A, this was to be accepted, and secondly, the situation in southern districts is very different. So when you see the state as a whole, clearly the healthcare system is not under stress at the moment. It has a lot of challenges to face, but is by no means under stress in the way in which we saw healthcare systems virtually collapsing in northern India 3 months ago.
No, I think, yeah, that is right. You cannot compare the two scenarios. That is, of course, correct. But let me correct you that when we say that the health facilities in northern part of Kerala are under stress, we meant that it is the ICU and the ventilator bed capacity which is under stress, or which is where we found that occupancy is going up to 90%. Ventilator beds. So what we assumed was that when you have this much occupancy in the ICU and this, so that will definitely lead the serious patients. When the positivity rises, you will see the rise in severe cases also. You will see the rise in the ventilator stress also. So on those particular two categories, there is a definite need where we need the expansion, number one, and where we also can say with certainty that there is a need that these particular facilities are under stress. And given the positivity rising trend, I have just quoted that in 14 days, the positivity has gone beyond 7% rise in test positive. That is a weekly average what we are talking. I'm not talking about the day by day.
I understand. What you're saying is that at the rate at which cases are growing, if ICU and ventilator capacity is already 90% used, it will soon run out. And that is a concern. And secondly, you're saying because of that concern, there needs to be immediate expansion of both. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And yes, but you are very right. When we talk about the southern district or the district like Trivandrum, district like Alappuzha, there is definitely a headroom available with the health facilities, as if the test which can be used if at all the positivity rises.
Now, one issue of great concern, which you touched upon at Tuesday's National Press Conference, is the breakthrough infections and the number that are happening, in particular, in a district called Pathanamthitta. You said there were almost 15,000 breakthrough infections with people who had one dose of vaccine and just over 5,000 with people who've had both. What do you suspect is the cause of this? Is it a hint that perhaps the vaccines are failing? Or is it possibly a hint that a new variant has arrived?
No, I think I will not agree with both these statements. Number one, Reason that breakthrough infections, because in no vaccine has got 100% vaccine efficacy. We have to see that the vaccine efficacy is limited to a level of, what we have seen in the ICMR study also, that the breakthrough infections are to the tune of around 0.4% or zero point 0.5. And here, if we look at the whole of the Kerala, let me just expand what the Patnamthitta scenario is showing us, that around 5,000 cases with full dose of vaccine dose. Of course, this is subject to the further information from the district and further information from the state as well. We have requested the state because we understand that the duration of development of immunity after full coverage of vaccine varies. And we have to clearly say that the full vaccine coverage, 14 days or 15 days after the second dose, is the time when we will be considering them as fully immunized as far as vaccination is concerned. But again, there are many uncertainties as far as the development of antibodies is concerned. So that could be one reason that the whole population which has been fully vaccinated might not have developed the immune antibodies to a level where they have provided the protective immunity to the individuals.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying that the high number of breakthrough infections in Pathanamthitta is not a sign of vaccine failure. It's not a sign, at least as yet, of a new variant, although that is something you're doing genome sequencing to be certain about. It's more likely to be a sign that these people haven't developed a sufficient number of antibodies. If that is the case, is there an argument for saying perhaps we should reduce the gap between the two doses from the present up to 16 weeks to perhaps 8 weeks?
No, I think let me put it in the right perspective. When we talk about the scientific data, we have to be very, very certain when we talk about this. Like you said about the new variant, that was one. Yes, we can't rule out this on the basis of the available data and available information as of now. Second, what we say that the vaccine failure part, vaccine, both the things we will be able to say with conclusive scientific evidence only that this is the reason behind it. As I said about the Delta Plus, I think you must have gone through that press briefing as well. I said that now after 3 months of clear assessment in the field, of the clusters of Delta Plus, which we noticed in Ratnagiri, Bhopal, and Chennai also, that we have arrived at a conclusion that Delta Plus is not giving rise to the type of surge which was thought as a scare in the media, and is also we were looking at that type of evidence. So once we have that evidence, I say that we are monitoring 4 parameters. Number one, we have asked all breakthrough infections to be submitted or subjected to whole genome sequencing. That will give us a better understanding of the type of variant which is there in breakthrough infection, whether it is the same Delta, which is given as to 90% or 80 to 90% of infections. Now in Kerala, is the same one in breakthrough also? 1 point. Second part, we are also looking at the duration after which these breakthrough have been noticed. So that will give us that how far the vaccine efficacy or vaccine has been proved to be efficacious. Third part, we are also looking at the type of efficacy which is claimed by the vaccine manufacturers and the type of efficacy which we are seeing in the field. And that has also already been assessed by ICMR study. And we are again looking at from that angle. But yes, definitely, this is a challenging part. And we have already submitted to the state that not only Patnamthitta, but other districts also should be looked into a little bit more carefully with regard to breakthrough infections after the persons have got full vaccination coverage. Again, we have to see which type of vaccine these persons received, whether that particular vaccine was given in at the right place, and we have to look at the other aspects of vaccine also. So I think we have to see the things in totality.
One more question. Yesterday, NDTV reported, quoting unnamed sources in the Ministry of Health, that in Kerala, the state as a whole, there were over 40,000 breakthrough infections. You've just returned from Kerala. Can you confirm that figure?
I cannot comment that what are there about the number. I definitely cannot comment that this is the number. Because I have just mentioned that I have asked the state. We have given a written communication that looking at the scenario, because I just quoted Patnamthitta, because Patnamthitta DM gave a presentation to us in which one of the slide which I showed yesterday was the one which was presented to me by the district collector. So I have all the more reason to believe the district collector that he must have gone through all the things, because when we talk in the press or when we give some kind of a statement, we have to be certain that the numbers do come from a reliable source, number one, and of course they have to be properly reviewed at the state level also. Then we can talk about the number in a more confirmatory way.
Now, Dr. Sujit Singh, let's sum up what we've said about Kerala, and then I'll give you a chance to respond specifically to the points Professor Kang made 2 weeks ago. But talking about the points you've made, A, that contact tracing is being done improperly and inadequately, often less than 1% of an infected person is contact traced. Secondly, given that many people in home isolation are actually freely wandering in their neighborhood and not being checked, the guidelines are not being observed. Given your concern about how ICU and ventilator beds, particularly in Malappuram, but in northern districts as a whole, are getting to full capacity and must be expanded. And finally, given your concern about breakthrough infections and the 4 parameters on which you're inquiring, are you overall of the opinion that Kerala is being negligent and casual? Is that your feeling, particularly with regard to contact tracing and monitoring home isolation? Is this a case of negligence and casualness?
Let me come point by point. You said that the contact tracing is not being done properly. Qualitatively, I can't say on the basis of this, because we have not observed the type of contact tracing which. But yes, numbers of contact, it is definitely not adequate as far as the national strategy is concerned, as far as the current positivity at which the Kerala is going. If we are not able to trace the contacts to the fullest number, then definitely we are not fully doing the contact tracing, or the numbers of it is inadequate, what I can say. Second part, you said health facilities. I agree with that. And I confirm that also, that is definitely requires upscaling also, and the state should be taking it up as more seriously. Third part, you said regarding the breakthrough infections. I agree with that. The one district number should be definite indication where we need to look into this particular aspect in a more careful manner, and from all the aspects which I have just now enumerated. Not only from variant aspect, but also from the vaccine efficacy aspect, from other aspects as well, so that we arrive at conclusive evidence that which type of vaccine failure is this, if at all it is there, which type of variant which is playing role in this breakthrough, if at all a new variant is there, or if it is just the same Delta variant, because we have seen Delta variant in USA, UK giving rise to breakthrough infections. US CDC has also reported over 7,000 breakthrough infections with hospital admission. I must mention here clearly, because when we talk of breakthrough, there is a spectrum of illness, right from asymptomatic to mild symptomatic to serious, and even to deaths, which have been noticed in United States. So that is basically what I meant.
I understand fully, sir. I was simply trying to ask you this. Do you believe Kerala is being negligent? Is it being less than diligent? Is that how you would sum it up? Or would you say those are the wrong adjectives?
No, I just can't specifically put these adjectives correct in this background. But yes, definitely, these are the areas which require strengthening. Because if we are continuously seeing from last 45 to 50 days that the transmission is not being interrupted, we are hoping that the vaccine will provide the desired level of immunity apart from this low level of exposure or low level what they say, then definitely we are mistaken. Both the things have to go hand in hand. Interrupting transmission is definitely should be on priority. Together with the vaccination, both the things should go hand in hand, and the 5-pronged strategy by the center or the ministry needs to be put in place. We can't be complacent with any of that.
Let's now come very quickly and in much shorter time to the points that Professor Kang said to me just 2 weeks ago. I want you to have a chance to respond to them. First of all, she said the best explanation for Kerala's large number of daily cases is its seropositivity rate. It's 44% in Kerala compared to a national average of 68%. And she said this means the number of people who are still vulnerable in Kerala is much bigger than any other state, which is why Kerala is throwing up so many more daily infections.
I couldn't fully agree with that, because point number one is that, okay, susceptible pool of population is one part of the whole epidemiological triad, where we have virus also, where we have environment also, where we have susceptible pool of population also, which definitely is larger in Kerala, and not only in Kerala, but in Maharashtra also, one part. But infected persons pool is another part, which gives rise to the transmission also. If you have the infected pool reduced to a bare minimum, then definitely your infection or the transmission of infection even to the susceptible pool will be less. This pool has been there prior to this also. You must have seen that when the Delta variant entered the Kerala somewhere around 12th of April or so, the rise in Kerala was also on the similar cards. And by 5th or 6th of May, the rise was up to 30%, what we have seen in 7-day moving average. So that, and thereafter it declined because of the strict lockdown from 8th May to 16th, I think, June. And that was the time when the positivity really declined subsequent to that. But after that particular phase was over, the positivity remained at a level of 10% or 11%. Only 2 or 3 measures like weekly lockdown, which is definitely not a scientific measure to curtail the transmission, just for increasing awareness. And looking at the population density and scenario in Kerala, you can't hope that this kind of measure is sufficient by your own standard. Yeah.
Now, the second point made by Professor Kang is that Kerala is throwing up a lot of positive cases because it's doing much more testing than any other state. Kerala does 4,587 tests per million compared to a national average of 1,280. And secondly, she says, Kerala does much more smart targeted testing. As a result, Kerala's detection rate is 1:6 compared to a national average of 1:33. How do you respond to that?
But actually, what is the basic purpose of testing? Basic purpose of testing is to identify the infected people, and then after identification, our procedure for strict isolation or putting them either in the hospital or in the isolation facility at home is to be coupled with the testing. If you do testing and your positivity is not coming down, then that definitely indicates that your testing, maybe you are testing targeting, but you are putting the infected person, you are not putting the infected persons under strict isolation. So how your testing, high level testing is going to help you? Testing is only one method of detecting the infected people. And these infected people, if not dealt with properly or provided the proper isolation, then definitely it is not going to help you. That is the scene which you are seeing. If testing alone is the only method, you can see that for past 45, 50 days, 2 months, I can say, they have been maintaining very good testing. There is no denying to that. But the testing is not coupled with the type of other measures which are required.
Those other measures being effective isolation, proper contact tracing.
Yes,
Let
definitely.
me put to you the conclusion that Professor Kang came to. She said that, and I'm quoting her, she said, Kerala has done an outstanding job controlling the spread of COVID. And she was referring specifically to 2 things. The very low seropositivity, which suggested quite clearly that Kerala has protected people, which is why the seropositivity is low. The infection has not spread. And secondly, she was referring to the very high percentages of vaccination. So both in terms of seropositivity and in terms of vaccination, she said Kerala has done an outstanding job controlling the spread of the virus and protecting its people. And she went on to say that as a result, Kerala should be a role model for the rest of the country. Now, I'm pretty certain you disagree. So I won't ask you, do you disagree? I'm going to ask you, how strongly do you disagree?
Yeah, I definitely disagree, because particularly the role model like this is not going to be the one which I should be endorsing or I should be agreeing to. Why? If we see the positivity, if we allow the positivity to go at this level, hoping that this exposure will give you the desired level of immunity. So that is definitely not a right method, because you will get, let me just put you the correct situation. Kerala at present is having around 130 deaths on a daily basis. If you require the full vaccination to be taken up with this transmission going on, with this mortality going on, you will require another 3 to 4 months to get the full population, or the around 60 to 70% of the population with immunity. So during that time, you are going to have this much mortality, 5,000 deaths in a month's time, and you are going to continue with that for 4 months. That is one scenario. Second aspect is regarding this particular transmission going on, your all health facilities will be at stress. That is number two. Third part, most important, is when the infection is spreading in the community, you cannot have all the strings in your hand. Some of the strings will get loose and the transmission will go beyond your, it cannot be always a controlled infection spread in the community. And that is the basic thing which we have to understand. Like what we are seeing in last 14 days, I have just quoted, around 5 districts or 7 districts are having the positivity which has increased by 5%. And in next 14 days, if you increase by another 5%, you will be back to the square one. You will be at the 20% positivity or the 25% positivity where you resorted for the full lockdown. The full lockdown was the only measure which reduced the positivity from 28% to 11%. And thereafter, there has not, if you talk about the measures, then those measures should have worked in 15 days, 20 days, 45 days, 50 days. They have not given us the result, or because I am talking about interrupting the transmission. And vaccination, there is no denying they are doing good job, and that has to be continued. And vaccination is the key to development of immunity, because vaccine immunity is the one which we desire, because it is a controlled dose of infected or attenuated virus which we are getting. And by this, if we develop the antibody, that will definitely give us a better protection, better memory immunity, and better, of course, the community level immunity will also improve.
We're coming very close to the end of this interview, Dr. Sujit Singh. I have only 2 last big questions to ask you. First of all, Onam, which is one of the biggest festivals in Kerala, is in 8 days' time on the 20th. What is your advice to the Kerala government?
My advice will remain the same, because we have been advising all states regarding avoiding all such gatherings. We have done it in the past 1 year. We have refrained from big celebrations, particularly with regard to the marriages, with regard to the festivals, and we have to continue, because we are just if I put it correctly, in the last phases or last 6 or 7 months. So why can't we just avoid these things, do the celebration at home, and follow the COVID appropriate behavior, the guidelines? Otherwise, at this positivity, if you are having super spreading events like this, then there is all the more danger. We have seen in Kumbh also, we have seen in other holy festivals, many times we have seen this. These super spreading events are the ones which not only give rise to the spread of infection, but I must point out one more thing to you, that the continued transmission, continued high, give rise to variants also. Absolutely. We are struggling with variants, and this is the one important reason where I want that the positivity in the Kerala should be tackled at a war footing. It should be brought down at least below 5. What we have seen in Tamil Nadu. Yeah.
In other words, Kerala must not do over Onam what it did over Eid, which is relax the situation for 3 days. Do not repeat the Eid mistake at Onam. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that only.
Now, one other thing. Newspapers have started to report in the last few days, Kerala has decided that people can only visit shops, markets, banks, several public and private offices if they have taken at least 1 vaccination 2 weeks earlier, or have an RT-PCR negative certificate which is less than 72 hours old, or they have a COVID positive certificate which is at least a month old. These are pretty drastic measures that are not in place, as far as I know, in any other state. but as of the last 3-4 days, they've been implemented in Kerala. Do you believe these are wise measures?
Yes, I do believe that at this stage of pandemic, because I mentioned that in this complex pandemic, we have to use epidemiological intelligence at each and every step. Only giving one strategy and not reviewing it epidemiologically, it will not solve our problems. It's a complex pandemic. I fully endorse what Kerala government has done. There are 2-3 scientific reasons for that. Even one dose gives us a fairly some level of immunity. Number one, if we have both the doses are given, then definitely it will provide the protection, and the infected persons will be refraining from entering into any office, any shop where the overall immunity infection level will go down. Similarly, if we test it positive, then definitely the RT-PCR test, which is a gold standard or which is highly sensitive test, will definitely refrain, or the positives will be not allowed to enter the office, and definitely we will be having a better scenario as far as the offices are concerned. Spread will be limited, and this is a good step, I agree. And I think this can be followed by other states as well in this, and we should be advocating vaccination in a big way, and this will help not only vaccination drive, but also infection in metros and other places also, like what Mumbai is doing. So we can follow the same thing.
My last question, and it arises out of everything you've said in this interview, but in particular, it arises out of your concern about super spreader events, how the Kumbh Mela had created them, how Eid and the relaxations in Kerala had done the same, how Onam, if Kerala is irresponsible, could be another super spreader. In that context, I want to ask you, what do you think of the announcement made by the BJP yesterday that starting 16th August, it will carry out Jan Ashirwad Yatras right across 22 states, covering almost 20,000 kilometers and holding over 1,600 major meetings? Is this wise, or is this playing with risk and fate and creating super spreaders when you don't need to?
I haven't really heard about this, but our scientific advice will be the same. What we have given in each and every super spreading event, that even during the time of election rallies, and also the Ministry of Health gave clear guidelines that all super spreading events where we require that the gathering should be limited as per the Ministry of Health home guidelines, should be the one which have to be enforced with strict COVID appropriate behavior also. What I say, that in each and every event which we celebrate, or where we anticipate that there could be a large gathering, we should definitely take full measures that no super spreading event at this stage, when we have just on the, I can say, on the recovery path from the second surge. And this is the time where we need to be utterly careful, particularly in the states like Kerala, particularly in the northeastern state like Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Manipur, Mizoram. So there we definitely cannot take such kind of measures, which we should be avoiding all this.
We should be avoiding these Jan Ashirwad Yatras because they could become super spreader events. That is your scientific advice.
Yes, that's correct.
One last question, sir. I didn't intend to ask it, but I will. It's been widely reported, first by Reuters, that INSACOG had forewarned the government in early March about the Delta variant and how it could lead to an exponential or a potential exponential rise in cases. And despite that, political rallies were held right through March and April. Kumbh Melas with millions were held right through April. And then that Reuters story was confirmed in person by Rakesh Mishra to me, who is a member of INSACOG. That advice in March was ignored. And you know what happened with the second wave. Are you sure your advice this time round about Jan Ashirwad will be listened to? Or will it be ignored again?
No. Let us put the two things in a different perspective. Number one, I must mention, and we have clarified in a reply to Parliament as well, that the Delta variant was not known at that point of time. It was B1617.1, 617 only, where two mutations were noticed simultaneously in that. I think if you recollect correctly, at that point of time, it was called double mutation. The point which was mentioned and which has been highlighted to the state also during that time, when I myself visited the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, where some of the districts were showing exponential surge, and that was at the insistence of the state government. They said that you have come to Mumbai, and so please go and visit that area also. We requested the state to provide samples on 12th and 18th February. Samples reached to our lab around 25th of February. The results were available by 5th or 7th of March. We just collaborated all those results, and we gave this particular variant, which was having double mutation. It was not Delta at that point of time, no impression. And particularly, I must say that there was no such report where it was clearly indicated that Delta was there. That is what we have said. Delta, okay, yes, there is a definite sequence of events when Delta arrived.
Okay. I think it's only right that you should have a full chance to answer. But do you believe your advice about the Jan Ashirwad Yatras will be heeded and listened to, or will it be ignored?
It is not my advice which matters. It is the advice of Ministry of Health which matters, and Ministry of Health definitely advises, and finally the Home Ministry takes a call, and whatever are the guidelines which are taken by the government are definitely, we are all for the support of the government in all technical possible ways. Whatever may be the situation, we will definitely.
I thank you for this interview, in particular for joining and explaining in detail how you view the situation in Kerala. And I thank you also for saying that your scientific advice regarding the Jan Ashirwad Yatras is that it's best not to have them because they could become super spreader events. And at this time, we don't want to take a risk. I hope the country listens to that advice. I hope politicians of all parties listen to that advice and do not believe that somehow their events can be special and different. Thank you very much for talking to me, Dr. Sujit Kumar Singh. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.